Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Believe in Bengal podcast. Here's truly Solomon Wilcots. We got a great show coming up for you later. Coming and joining us on the show will be the author and Bengals reporter himself for SI.com and for Locked On Bengals. James Rapien is going to join us. He's got some really good takes on what's happening with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and the Tee Higgins signing his contract. We're going to have that conversation after Higgins has signed the franchise tender. But first, we want to start this show after telling you more about Bet Online. Of course, it's the number one source for NBA Finals now that they've been completed. You can also still bet on NHL playoffs and every stat, every matchup. You can get all the live odds and all the games that are being played. Of course, all you got to do is head to the website and use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to get 50% off. Bet Online is where the game starts. I have to lay this out for you because I'm hearing this everywhere that I go. Because all of us want to see Tee Higgins remain on the Cincinnati Bengals roster for a long period of time. We want to see him get the long-term contract that he so rightfully deserves. And we're going to talk more about that coming up when James Rapien is going to join us during our second segment. But for now, I want to just talk to Cincinnati Bengals fans because most of them believe that because Joe Burrow is earning $50+ million a year, that somehow in order to keep both Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins, that Joe Burrow somehow is taking too much money, that Joe Burrow needs to give money back in order for us to keep both of their talented wide receivers on the team simultaneously. I'm here to tell you, Bengals fans, nothing could be further from the truth. It's just not true. It is not Joe Burrow's job to do business for the Cincinnati Bengals. In other words, it's not his job to help the Bengals come to long-term contract negotiation settlements with their top two wide receivers, right? Just like on your job. It's not up to you to give back money to your employer so that you can keep someone else working in your department, working for your company. It's not Joe Burrow's job to do the financial business for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's up to the Cincinnati Bengals to do their job. It's up to the business leaders to perform the business. He's not asking them to come help play quarterback. Why should they be asking him to help negotiate business? That's not how it works. And I can give you some evidence to the fact. Because Joe Burrow right now is one of 6 quarterbacks around the National Football League who's currently making over $50 million a year. He's one of 6 quarterbacks who's doing that right now. And 21 wide receivers are making over $20 million a year. And I'm going to give you the Philadelphia Eagles. They're one team that is also paying their quarterback, Jalen Hurts, $50 million a year. And you know what they're paying their 2 wide receivers? A.J. Brown is getting $32 million a year, right about the same amount of contract that you're going to see rewarded to Jamar Chase when he signs his deal. And they're paying their second wide receiver, Devontae Smith, $28 million a year. So both wide receivers for the Eagles are getting a grand total, a combined total of $60 million a year, while also paying the quarterback $50 million a year. So I just gave you an example of a team that's doing it. There's 5 teams right now that have 2 wide receivers on their roster, and both receivers are earning in excess of $20 million a year, right? We've got 2 teams where the receiver and 2 wide receivers are making $60 million a year. That's right. Go check what Jalen Waddle is making and Tyreek Hill was making for the Miami Dolphins. My point is, the Bengals can pay Joe Burrow the $50+ million that he's making. You can also pay Jamar Chase $30 million a year and still pay Tee Higgins $20 million a year. That's what you can do. This is not out of the realm of reality. If I hear from another Bengals fan, we can't afford to keep Tee Higgins, I don't know what I'm going to do, because the numbers says yes, they can. Teams are making year over year more money than they ever thought possible. They have more money coming online because of gaming. It's really called gambling, but let's just be nice about it. It's called gaming. They have more money through streaming games. They're going to sell the Christmas Day package, 3 games televised on Christmas by Netflix that will make them in excess over $100 million in one day, just on 3 games. So in all the revenue streams that the NFL has, there's a certain portion of that money that they negotiated, designated gross revenue, that'll be shared with the players. That's why you have a salary cap. Every year that cap goes up. It's about $244 million this year. That's the money that goes into the locker room towards players' contracts. It's their job to divide up the $244 million amongst the 90 or so players that it'll take to get through an NFL season. Because it's not just the 53 on the game day roster. It's another 18 or so on the developmental squad. And you have players that are injured. You still have to pay them for the rest of the year, but you also have to bring a player onto the roster to take their place. You can't exceed that number. 244 million is what you have to operate to get through a regular season. However, they get to divide the money up how they want. That's what it means to do business. It's not Joe Burrow's job to help them with that business. Joe Burrow is kind of like you and I. He's going to make most of his money over a short period of time. Most quarterbacks, if you're lucky, you get to play 10 years. If you're Tom Brady, the greatest ever, you get to play 23. But you don't have a 30 or 40-year career in the NFL as a player. So unlike you or I, he has to make his life's earnings in a short window. That's why the number on a per annual basis is what it is. So I just wanted to share that with Cincinnati Bengals fans. It's not Joe Burrow's job to do the business of negotiating contract with the players. It's the Bengals front office. That's their job to do it. And if the Eagles can sign a quarterback to $50 million and 2 wide receivers for a combined total of $60 million, then I'm sure we could keep Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Tee Higgins together forever. How about that? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Believe in Bengal podcast with yours truly, Solomon Wilcots. And right now we're joined by a very special guest, James Rapien of SI.com and Locked On Bengals, joining us on the show. James, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, Solomon. I appreciate you having me.
Hey, always great to have you. We know you're bringing the news because you're covering the Cincinnati Bengals on the daily. You're in the building. You're at practices. You were able to attend the offseason training program, even during the mandatory minicamp. First of all, we got the news just over the weekend that Tee Higgins has signed a franchise tender. He'll earn $21.8 million for the upcoming season. That's more money than he earned in the first 4 years of his rookie contract. So first of all, just kind of help us walk through the meaningful elements of signing the franchise tender at this point. Means he's going to be present during training camp. Is that what we're hearing here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the significance of this. It isn't the fact that he signed the tender. He was going to. You knew it. I knew it. Right. He knew it in February when they placed the tag on him. Not that he was happy about it, but that was it. Is he was going to sign it. But the fact that he does it in June, right after minicamp ends, doesn't turn this into a holdout situation almost where he doesn't show up to training camp. Good for T. And I think what it shows, my initial reaction was, oh, I'm surprised. And then 2, he's clearly in the right mindset and attacking this offseason with the right mentality. Has a new trainer in Miami that he's been working with. That's right. And I think he's focused on having a career year, focused on showing the Bengals and 31 other NFL teams that he's one of the premier wide receivers in the league. And part of that for him is showing up to training camp on time. So instead of holding out and instead of going in circles, knowing you're going to sign this tender, get it out of the way, avoid the drama, and show up next month.
James, I want you to weigh in after I offer a few elements as to why, because if you're a Bengals fan, you're saying Tee Higgins is going to get $21 million all in 1 year, and it's guaranteed from the moment he signed the franchise tender. Why is he upset? What's the problem here? I'm offering this, and then I'll get your reaction. Tee Higgins was drafted in 2020, the same year when Joe Burrow was drafted to the Cincinnati Bengals. In that same season, there was a wide receiver draft class that saw Justin Jefferson go to Minnesota. We saw CeeDee Lamb go to the Dallas Cowboys. We also saw players like Henry Ruggs. We also saw wide receivers that were supposed to be really good players like a Jerry Jeudy, right? Go to the Denver Broncos. Tee Higgins fell out of the first round. Those guys that I just named were drafted ahead of him. Some of those players, he's outplayed them. And even Jerry Jeudy has gotten a second contract, right? So Tee Higgins is sitting here, 82% of the catches he's made in the 4 years that he's played for the Bengals have gone for either a first down or a touchdown. He's played himself into being one of the top paid wide receivers in the NFL. So that's why he has room to say, wait a minute, I've shown you what I could do. I produced at a higher level. Why have I not gotten the long-term contract that we see going to guys like Michael Pittman Jr., who he's outperformed, drafted at the same time, right there with the Indianapolis Colts, but not getting the same reward?
I totally agree. I think the wide receiver market element is a huge factor here. And $21.8 million that he's going to make this year is a lot. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But 3 years, $90 million or 3 years, $80 million, that sounds much better to Tee Higgins. And even a receiver that's represented has the same agent as Tee Higgins, Calvin Ridley, this year getting $50 million guaranteed from the Tennessee Titans, which is Tee Higgins's home state, by the way. And I know he pays attention to what the Titans are doing. Yeah, these receivers are getting paid. They've never been more valuable in the history of the NFL. And if you're T, you were overlooked during the draft process.
Yeah.
To a degree, you've been overlooked now, even though you've been a big part of this offense. And so that's why I think he really all offseason has kind of put his head down, tried to avoid the drama. I think he's done a good job of that in the social media era.
He's a pro. He's a pro. Yeah.
No doubt. And he knows if he handles business this year, that he'll get that payday. But yeah, it is frustrating because he knows his value. And in any one of us, even with the 21.8 million, we would be frustrated if we were Tee Higgins, no doubt.
So I'm just going to let our audience know there are 21 wide receivers in the NFL currently, at the time of this recording, making an average of over $20 million a year. Okay. There are 21 of them. Tee Higgins is going to be one. He's going to make 22 as of signing this deal. There are 5 teams now that have 2 wide receivers making over $20 million a year. The Bengals aren't one of them. I argue that they could be if they wanted to. To that, you would say what, James?
Absolutely, they could. And the question is, should they be? And I would argue, and I think there are guys in that locker room, and I don't mean Tee Higgins or Jamar Chase, that think they should, that think that Tee Higgins doesn't grow on trees. And even though you have a Jamar Chase and you could sign him to a long-term mega extension and keep him with Joe Burrow, that it would be beneficial for the team to also spend on Tee Higgins. I mentioned it earlier, the fact that wide receivers are as valuable as they've ever been. They're more impactful than they've ever been in this era. And so, yeah, there's so many wide receivers in the draft. Every year, it seems like half of those guys don't pan out still. It's not like the hit rate is perfect. And even though the Bengals are great at drafting wide receivers, losing Tee Higgins will still be a loss if they do that. So you could certainly make the argument that the Bengals would be better paying all 3. Joe Burrow, obviously, they have done that. They want to extend Jamar Chase. And Tee Higgins is only 25 years old. Extending him, they have until July 15th if they want to do so this offseason.
I think what we found out even last year, right, when we let Jesse Bates and Von Bell go, that, you can go and fill the position. You can go get another player who you think is as good. The chemistry that players have with each other and with the coaching staff, I think that's really where the Cincinnati Bengals as an organization have to place, I think, a higher value on that. If you get another receiver who gives you production, does that player also have chemistry with Joe Burrow? Does that player have chemistry with Jamar Chase and with the team in terms of the total buy-in? You don't have to ask that question with Tee Higgins. So many times when Jamar Chase has not been able to play, he stepped in and became your number one. And then immediately when Jamar Chase returns, he goes back quietly to filling the role as number two without complaining. But boy, every time we asked him to be the big time player, as we saw even in the Super Bowl, he has done that and even more. I want to go ahead and move on because we have some things we need to cover. Cincinnati Bengals are going to be on Hard Knocks again. They've already done it twice, but in those other 2 years when they were on Hard Knocks, it was during the preseason. This time it's going to be during the regular season and hopefully in the playoffs as well, James, but they get to share the spotlight. It's going to be the entire AFC North. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, the Cleveland Browns, and Bengals will all be featured on Hard Knocks later in the regular season. To that, you say, what? This has got to be an exciting time to be in the AFC North division.
No doubt. I think and I don't know about you, Solomon, I have never watched the in-season Hard Knocks. Normally, and it just started in 2021.
Yeah, I tend to check out by then.
The Bengals are usually pushing for the playoffs and in the playoff hunt even last year. So I have blinders on. And I think it's a good idea for the Bengals or for the NFL to not only have one team like the Bengals that has plenty of storylines, but pick an entire division where there's going to be a bunch of storylines and intrigue.
Yeah.
And one of the things that stood out to me after that announcement came out about Hard Knocks, a lot of these AFC North games are on the back end of the schedule when the show starts. Yeah. The Bengals play the Steelers for the first time December 1st. Yeah. That show airs and debuts December 3rd. So I like the idea, and I think that this has a chance to be one of the better versions of Hard Knocks with all the storylines and what is clearly the best division in football.
Yeah, it clearly is. For the first time last year, all 4 teams in the AFC North division finished with a winning record. That was the first time since 1932 that the NFL has had a division where all the teams in that division finished with a winning record. Over the last 3 seasons, the AFC North division has chalked up more wins in that division than any other division in football over the last 3 years and running. I think we can go back to 2020 when we saw 3 of the 4 teams make it in the playoffs, and it happened again just last season in 2023. I want to bring this up to you because I saw that you wrote about this, that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, as soon as they wrapped up the 2-day mandatory minicamp, they set sail for France. One is I'm jealous as I can be because I love Paris. My favorite place in Paris is the Louvre Museum. I don't know if you've ever been there, but you should go. But then the French Riviera, that's where Joe Burrow is hanging out and he's beating people in chess. Talk to me more about that, James.
Yeah, how about that? One, I thought they were just flexing on us with Jamar in Paris and Joe and the French Riviera, but now you say you've been. I've never been. So I'm the odd man out here. I will say this. This is what Tee Higgins wants. He wants to be able to just go to Paris or go to France whenever he wants.
That's right.
And that second round money is a little different than Jamar Chase's first round money. So I think they're having a good time. And as you know, it's going to come quick. Training camp is right around the corner, and you're going to blink and it's going to be here. So I think it's good that they're taking some time traveling and taking a breath because those seasons are long and it's going to start here quickly.
Well, I could tell you this. I've been over to Paris. You take the train outside the city. You go into the countryside and you stumble upon one of the grandest estates your eyes will ever lay feast upon, and that is the Palace of Versailles. You may have read about it, right?
Yep.
This place is immaculately beautiful. And maybe the only better place to be is the French Riviera, and I'm sure Joe Burrow is boarding some yacht as we speak because that is just tremendously beautiful. But the Paris countryside is beautiful. I saw Jamar Chase doing some shopping like he needs to add to his wardrobe. Yeah, these 2 guys are living the life that most people wish that they could participate in. And we wish them all the best and expect them to return healthy and ready to go in July when we report to training camp. Lastly, I want to ask you about this because you were at the team OTAs throughout minicamp. what did we get from everything? It's just a lot of buzz around third-round pick wide receiver Jermaine Burton. What did you see? What can you report?
Yeah, I think the one thing, and you don't really get to see him. They didn't do one-on-ones or anything like that. The team drills were 7-on-7.
Yeah.
But what was he being discussed and talked about during the pre-draft process and then after the Bengals drafted him? He didn't have a drop last year, and I think his hands very much on display. The hands catches away from his body downfield. You see that, and I think that's going to translate. And you do wonder how it's going to. But that stood out to me. And then the other element, I think he is eager and willing to learn. I'm sure he was treading water a bit during this offseason program, but he just talked to all of his teammates, and he's trying to learn the playbook, trying to get it down, understands that Joe Burrow is particular and how you run routes and all of those things, and the intricacies of the slot position specifically at the NFL level. I think he's trying to get that down. So I think he certainly has the talent, and I'm excited to watch him. But the hands are very, very real. I'm not sure I saw him drop a pass during the offseason program either.
Yeah, as much as we loved Tyler Boyd in the slot for the Cincinnati Bengals, I thought he was one of the most courageous players that we had on the team, one of the hardest working players that we had on the team. To put someone in that spot with blazing speed, with Chase and Higgins on the outside, are you kidding me? What does that mean for a Bengals offense with Joe Burrow pulling the trigger and that kind of trio of receivers? Every last one of them can beat you deep. Every last one of them can create yards after the catch. To put him in the slot, or even Chase in the slot, and maybe Burton outside, what potentially could we see with this wide receiver group? And I'm not trying to erase Trenton Irwin from what we saw from him last year, because you could throw him also in the equation.
No doubt. I mean, Trenton Irwin, I think Andre Yosevich had a good mini camp as well, an offseason program. Charlie Jones gives you some speed out of the slot. If that's what you're looking for. But they need to get more explosive, and they need to find ways outside of Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins to create big plays downfield. And so a Jermaine Burton certainly gives you that. I think I don't want to say stale, but I think they were kind of predictable. Defenses knew what they were going to try to do week in and week out to a certain extent. I think they'll be more multiple this year and be harder to guard and harder to predict exactly what they're going to do or what Joe's reading. And part of that has to do with the versatility of the wide receiver room, the new faces there. I'll throw Mike Gesicki, the tight end, in the mix as well. I think he's going to be a big factor on offense. So they need to get more explosive. Teams are going to double and triple Jamar Chase, try to take him away. So you need other options. And Jermaine Burton, I think by hopefully the start of the year, but by mid-year, I never want to put too much on a rookie.
That's right.
He's going to make an impact this year for sure.
There is no doubt about it. I think he'll make an impact. We've got Amarius Mims, who I think is one of the most talented offensive tackles that we've seen. When you combine his sort of athleticism with the massive sort of size that you get from him, I think it's going to be very interesting to watch these young players grow. They're ultimately going to become stars. I really do believe that. James Rapien, SI.com, and of course, Locked On Bengals. Thank you for joining us again, my friend. You always bring in the great information. And by the way, where you're going for vacation this summer?
Siesta Key. So not as far as Paris.
There you go. There you go.
But yeah, we'll put my feet up on the beach for a few days.
Hey, sure. You're living large too, man. You're living like an NFL baller. It's okay. It's not quite all
Seventh
right.
Rounder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Undrafted.
The seventh round. No, it's better than draft. The Siesta Key is that's a draft pick. I'm going to give you a draft pick on that one. How about that?
There we go. I'll take it.
Right.
I'll settle for
all
that.
right. James Rapien, you're the best, my friend. Thank you for joining us right here on the Believe in Bengal podcast. We'll be back with more right after this. All right, everyone. Hey, we want to thank you for joining us right here on the Believe in Bengal podcast. This has been one heck of an episode. I want to thank James Rapien of SI.com and Locked On Bengals for joining us. We want you to join us again right here on the Believe in Bengals podcast. We'll be back next week, everyone. Take care.